I still struggle with mic placement. Is it better on this side? I don't know. Hello! It is a beautiful Sunday morning. It's also crazy hot, but I think that's beautiful because I'm a lizard from South Texas. So that it is what it is. Before I begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank my sponsor, the fly that's been staying on my living room wall. This one's for you, Freddie. I'm coming at you today. I was not planning on making this video, but it's just something that's been like weighing on my heart for a while, and I thought I would give it a go and trying to express myself. So here goes. I've been listening to a lot of people like Peter Boghossian, James Lindsay, Helen Pluckrose, and there's another Helen. I can't remember her last name, but she's Irish, and she's just absolutely awesome to listen to. I love her accent so much, and I love how profound her insights are. Anyway, all of them are atheists. I've also been listening to a lot of people who belong to other religions, other Christian religions, non-Christian religions. Like, it's been a lot of concepts have been swirling around in my mind for a while, and especially the idea that a lot of people have and have expressed that how can you believe in God when there's no proof? Like, that's what comes up a lot. I think that's like Peter Boghossian's main line, and I really respect him for it. Like, I love that he is so evidence focused. He's like, I'm not going to believe something. I'm not going to go along with something. I'm not going to change my life for anything unless I have evidence to my satisfaction. And I think that's a fantastic stance to take in general. And it's also fantastic to take that stance when you have an open enough mind to be able to see the evidence in unlikely places. So like him and James Lindsay, I have a ton of respect for. I have a ton of respect for pretty much every atheist because they have had to, nearly all of them have had to have their own coming of age story where they realize, like, I'm not going to go along with something just because somebody tells me to. I want to find out the truth for myself, and I will be loyal to the truth, even if it means letting go of something that I thought was real and I can no longer see is real, like it's been disproven. And I think that takes a lot of courage to be able to say, I'm not going to be loyal to anything that's my bias. Like, I'm going to be more loyal to the truth than my own biases and my own opinions. And it's something that I'm trying to emulate as well. But I mean, of course, being somebody who is religious, I have to acknowledge that, like, I have my own biases. And this has been like swirling around in my head of like, yes, there is no proof for God. But there's also no proof that he doesn't exist either. He cannot be proven and he cannot be disproven, which I think is like brilliant. Brilliant. Me being somebody who believes in God, I think God is such a baller for setting everything up the way that he has. Utter freedom to follow him or not, which, like, you can't have real love without total freedom. Anyway, I think he's just incredible. So I love the fact that there is no absolute proof for his existence or against his existence. I mean, this is keeping in mind that while evolution, for example, is a plausible explanation of how we came to be, and it is something that has been really well researched. However, there are still many scholars who don't agree with it. Mathematicians who say it is not mathematically mathematicians who say it is not mathematically possible to have the variety of life that we have in the length of time that the Earth has been in existence. It's just not statistically possible. And then you also have biologists who say that when we see a change in the amino acids and the proteins and DNA in a cell, we have yet to see a change other than like feather color or beak size, something where it's the structural integrity of the organism. We have yet to see an instance where there has been an alteration in the DNA of something that hasn't been catastrophically bad. Like, we have yet to capture a time when it was good. And then also you have archaeologists who look at the Cambrian period and saw this explosion of variety of life coming about. And they're like, How could this possibly have happened in so short a time frame in one time explaining evolution alone? So that's just one example of how like evolution can give people a very good reason to think God didn't create the world, it's just natural processes. But even that is still disputed. It is still a theory. It is not absolute proof. And so I brought that up just because I wanted to distinguish this idea between proof and evidence. Somebody that I was reading, I can't remember her name, but if you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints like I am, you may have heard about the CES letter. It like spread around in 2013 and made a resurgence in 2015. People now are still reading it and still curious about it. And I stumbled across something on fairlatterdaysaint.com. I believe that's what it's called. And it was breaking down the CES letter. And the first thing that this woman who's writing this post about it states that just like really hit me was that we need to stop assuming that evidence and proof are the same thing. You can have a lot of evidence for something and a lot of evidence against it. That is not what proof is. Proof is undeniable and it is conclusive. Evidence can say this supports this idea. We have evidence suggesting blah, 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 but it is not actually conclusive proof. Conclusive proof has to be an overwhelming amount of evidence. So anyway, I think that's absolutely incredible that God will give us evidence. And there's also, to be fair, there's plenty of evidence against God too. I'm not denying that. There's evidence for him, there's evidence against him, but there is no proof for him or against him. We cannot conclusively say he is real or he isn't real, because to do so would be, I mean, I don't even know how you would disprove the existence of God. I know how you would prove the existence of God, like meeting him. That would prove his existence. But disproving him, I don't know how, because the absence of him, what does that say? So anyway, if you have any ideas of like how would you possibly disprove the existence of God, I'd be curious. There's a fly that just landed on my pinky. Okay, anyway. So I wanted to break down and state, for me, what is proof for God? And it's not like, it's not miracles. It's not the examples of people in my church. Those can be very moving and inspirational. Those have taught me some of the characteristics of God, but that is not what proof, that's not evidence of what God, to me, that's not evidence of God. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. And this all ties in with my dad, because when I was a kid, as you've probably seen on some of my other videos, or maybe you've heard me explain, my parents got divorced when I was rather young. Their marriage was rocky since about the time that I was 4 until they got divorced when I was 9. And my relationship with my dad was never really that good as a kid, because I mostly just remember him being very angry and very grumpy. And as a little kid, that made me scared, and I didn't ever really want to get close to him. And so when they got divorced, I just was like, that's it. You're dead to me. Like, there is no possible way that we can be family anymore, because you have betrayed me so deeply. And what was interesting, I really do think that like I was given the best possible circumstances of a terrible situation. Like I don't want any kid to have to think that their parent doesn't like them. I don't want any kid to have to face seeing something that was supposed to be permanent dissolve, seeing love go away. You know, it's incredibly injurious to your self-esteem and to your ideas of like what the world is supposed to be like. So I was going throughout the world convinced my dad didn't love me. Now, my parents didn't fight for custody. I got to live with my mom, and my dad would see me once a week, at least. It was part of the agreement. My mom, even though she was furious with him, insisted that we still need our dad in our life. And I'm very, very grateful for that. So I have many, many memories of like going to the movies with him. He's a chiropractor, so I would hang out in the back of his office and we would interact a little bit while I was watching TV or playing video games. Or he would come to my band concerts or to my basketball games. Like, he was still very much a part of my life and my childhood. Now, I have many, stories of him being there, and yet none of that was, in my mind, evidence that he loved me. That did not count. He was just fulfilling a fatherly obligation. That's it. And this continued even into college. Like, I had to move away. My mom got remarried, and I moved away to Tennessee. That was the only reason why I was given a cell phone, is so that my dad could call me. And he would call me regularly. The conversation would always be kind of awkward because he would tell me like life updates for him, wouldn't ever ask me any questions, and then that would be it. So even though he called me, that still was evidence that like he's just fulfilling a fatherly obligation because he doesn't actually want to get to know me. He bought me a laptop for me to go to college. He bought me a car, actually not just one, but like two, I think. There wasn't a third, was there? I think there were just two, because he wanted to make sure that I had a way to get around. I served an LDS mission. Ugh. Why is that word so hard to say sometimes? I served an LDS mission, and for 18 months, and he never missed a week in emailing me. My mom missed weeks in emailing me, but my dad never did. I have an email from him every single week, regardless if I responded to him or not. And then when I came home, he's the one that picked me up from the airport. Like, there's so much evidence that he was trying to be a part of my life. And he was a flawed person who didn't always understand my love language. But when I look back now, I can see like, oh my gosh, it was obvious the entire time that he did love me. And I was totally in denial. I was saying none of that could possibly be evidence. What that's evidence for is that he has a sense of duty and obligation, not that he could actually possibly love me, because he left back when I was 9. There's no way he loves me anymore. That's just not possible. So it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I started to believe that my dad actually loved me, and that when he would call me at college, and it would still be very, very similar conversations of him telling me about like how well things went in his life, but not really ever asking me any questions or trying to see how I'm doing. Those started to become endearing conversations to me. It started to make me smile that he's, after all these years, still didn't know how to have a conversation with me, and I thought it was so cute. And it clicked like the second time that he bought me a car. It finally clicked for me. Like, he's not doing this to laden me with yet another responsibility or object that I couldn't pay for. He's doing it because he loves me. And gifts aren't really like my love language. That's probably part of the reason why I didn't notice with like the laptop and the cars and the cell phone that like he loved me. It just doesn't register for me, or at least it didn't. It does for me now because of that breakthrough and realizing he's wanting to stay in contact with me. He's wanting to take care of me, and he's wanting to provide for me in the best way that he knows how and the best way that he can. And once that clicked, I started to see all of the other evidences throughout my life of him constantly staying in contact with me, of him showing up to things, even if he's not super interested in them. Like, who wants to go to a middle school band concert? Honestly. The only thing worse is a middle school orchestra concert, because those are like screaming cats. It's awful. And yet he would be there at every single one of them. And I had plenty of evidence. Here's the point. I had plenty of evidence in my mind that he didn't love me. And I had plenty of evidence as well that he did. And it was my choice if I wanted to believe that he loved me or not. And when I stopped choosing to believe he didn't love me, and I instead chose to believe that he did, I now know he does. Like, it has been confirmed for me in every interaction since that he absolutely adores me. Who knew? Who knew? So, all of this that I'm trying to get at is, I believe that God exists the same way that I believe my dad loves me. I could choose to not believe that. And I could choose to believe that. And I would have plenty of evidence for both. And when I choose to believe that, I get to live in a loving, reciprocated relationship. And let me tell you, the evidence has come like in waterfalls, in torrential rainfalls. Like, it is pouring in, obvious to me now how much my dad loves me. It's just, there's no way I can deny it at this point anymore. No matter what evidence I thought I had prior that he didn't love me, it is conclusive to me. I will never go back to believing that he doesn't love me. And I feel the same way about God. And this is why I think the idea of trying to get evidence and proof for God is kind of difficult, is because it's like trying to get evidence and proof for relationships. When you break relationships down into transactions and say, this person gave me this many units of love today, I can give them this many back. Or maybe this person doesn't care about me because the last time that they talked to me was really curt and disrespectful, and you're completely ignoring the fact that they just came home from work and they had a really bad day. Like, sorry, that's been bothering me the whole video. If you guys have any resources to be able to look at where they try and quantify the quality of relationships, I would be down to try and figure that out. Like, is there any way that we can measure and break down relationships in a way that accurately reflects them? Because the more that I study, the more I look at psychology, the more I research sociology, the less convinced I am that we can fully encapsulate what a relationship feels like. There are plenty of people who have studied what makes successful ones, what makes unsuccessful ones. We have tons of examples of how to go wrong in relationships, and how abuse is just utterly ruinous, and how trust can be lost. And there's plenty of examples to the contrary of how things can go wrong that we can point to. But to point at qualitative examples of when things are going right, and the level of security and peace that somebody feels in a relationship with somebody else, like, it's very difficult to pinpoint. It's hard to quantify. And that's why I believe in God, because I think it's a relationship. And there's no way to quantify a relationship. And you kind of have to be open to the possibility that maybe God exists. Maybe that is an explanation. Maybe that is the simplest explanation for what is occurring in my life right now. Instead of only using empirical data, this is something that now, granted, I know I am not nearly as intelligent as James Lindsay or Peter Boghossian. I get it. They may have already thought of this argument that I'm about to posit and totally dismissed it and have a whole bunch of reasons why. I would love to hear it if they did. But for me, when people point at Jesus and they say, the laws of physics, it's not possible for somebody to walk on water. We know it is not possible to bring somebody back from the dead. We know there is no other option except for that he was a myth, that people were lying about who he is and what he does. It's not possible for somebody to be born without having had a father. Like, a virgin can't give birth. Obviously, this is a lie. And I am like, to me, that seems to be pointing out an argument without context. Because for every other person that has existed on the earth, I agree with every single one of those statements. Of course it's not possible for a person to be born from a virgin. Of course it's not possible to walk on water. Of course it's not possible to raise somebody from the dead. That's not disputed. What we as Christians are saying is that there is one person who broke all the rules. Just one. One person. One person who, if he used the evolutionary principles and rules of nature to create this world, awesome. But he started it all. There was an intelligent design and an intelligent designer, and he's the one that came onto this earth. Of course, he is not going to be like us. He's not going to be confined the way that we are confined, because we're not him. And to believe in Jesus is to believe that there is a person out there with a love so powerful and so potent and so steady that it does not matter what you do in your life. It does not matter if you believe in him or not. It does not matter if you... I lost my train of thought. My screen went dark and I lost it. So it does not matter if you believe in him or not. He's going to love you no matter what. It does not matter how horrifically you treat somebody else. He is going to love you no matter what. It does not matter how many times that you believe in him and then doubt him and then believe in him and then doubt him, betray him over and over and over again. He is an inexhaustible source of love. And I can appreciate how that is difficult to believe in. It is difficult to believe in because everywhere around us, in all of our relationships, we see that people have limitations. We see that people need boundaries. We see that people have scars that then impact how they treat other people. Like, it is difficult to believe that there's somebody who is so emotionally resilient that you can come back at him over and over and over again, and he's going to be okay with it. And he's not going to ever lash back out, that he's going to be inexhaustible in his love for you. I get it. That's hard to believe in. And I respect people who can't believe it. Because if I hadn't had the experiences that I've had, I wouldn't believe it either. But I do. And I have. And if I were to deny the witness, the evidence, and the experiences I've had in my life, I would be betraying a dear, dear friend. And I don't want to do that. So, I'm sorry that this tirade has become so long. I didn't intend for it to be long. I intended to make my point that, like, to me, I believe in God the same way that I believe in my dad's love. It is not something that I can quantifiably point to and say, here we go, that's proof. It's something that I have to choose to participate in, and then the evidence comes in droves. The same thing with believing in God. And I highly respect people who can't get there. I don't think there's anything inferior if you don't believe what I believe in you. Like, there's zero intellectual difference. There's zero character difference. I do believe that you can be a very good person and never believe in anything. I think that's totally possible. I just like having a perpetual permanent family, perpetual love, because I need that. And I'm okay with being needy. I'll admit it. I used to be so independent-minded and so stubborn that the idea of being weak was repulsive, but I'm okay with being weak now because I would rather be weak and at peace and loved than so stubbornly independent and having to fight for myself all the time and having to be in survival mode so often that I miss what's good. So, anyway, there's that for you. If you totally disagree with me, I'm happy to hear you out. Like, I legitimately love that we have such a diversity of thought and opinion in this world, and that we can talk about what we think and how we feel, and not ever have to come to a conclusive, like, definitive answer. I love the ambiguity, and I love that that like we can respect each other and love each other without believing in the same things. So if you disagree, I'm happy to hear the disagreements. I would just simply ask that you keep it respectful. That's it. So happy Sunday. Ta-ta.